Shout out to the chess club.
Death to all of them.
16 times the detail. We're aiming for a controversial 7 out of 10. But something's wrong with the game. 16 times the detail.
That's most definitely what's up. That's most definitely what's up.
I'm never gonna financially recover from this.
Assassins, Creed Valaha.
16 times the detail.
So you get nothing. You lose.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. How's everybody doing? Are you vibing? I know I be. I know I be. Hello. Did you see the Ken dance? I saw pictures of the Ken dance, but I did not watch it. I don't know what it is. I just have like less than zero interest in like the Oscars. I genuinely don't get it. I don't know why I'm supposed to be into it, you know? I just don't get it. Maybe one day, like when I'm a little older, I'll go through my like middle-aged mom phase and I'll get really into the Oscars and Entertainment Weekly and stuff. Maybe I'll do that eventually, but like, you know, you go to the grocery store and you see all of these like aisles and aisles of magazines. On the end caps, they have like, here's how you can eat grated Parmesan cheese to lose 50 pounds and look good for your man. And it's like all these magazines like that. And you're like, who is buying these? They keep them in the store because people are buying them. You know, they're not there for no reason. People are buying them. And I've always wondered who's buying them. But then you go to Walmart. And you kind of get it. It makes sense, you know? You know? Gaming Wins literally just uploaded everything great with Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. I'm kind of intrigued as to what is great. Like, character animations, really well done. Motion capture, really well done. It's kind of all I can think of that's really great. Even people were praising, like, the graphical fidelity. I still don't think it's a particularly stunning game. I think it's mostly because of art direction, but still. Yeah, I don't know. OJBR, glad to have you. Thank you. And that's one thing I love about this community is that we can disagree on stuff, but still hang out and have a good time. Like, you know, we're talking about video games at the end of the day. You know, it's not, none of this is that serious, you know? Okay. I mean, yeah, like I'm down to be convinced that Suicide Squad is better than I thought, but okay, I looked it up. First comment, I know you're an optimist, but goddamn. Okay, that's a little funny. That's a little funny. I don't know. Maybe it's satirical. I don't know. I don't know. Has anybody watched it? Anybody know? I did watch this video from Jack Sather. You guys might have seen it too. But it's straight up just, he wanted to like start working on a game, and he was just interested in trying to develop a video game. So it's a catalog of like a 2-week kind of crash course that he put himself on, where he was just like, I'm going to learn how to make a game in Unreal Engine. We're going to do this. So he like looks up tutorials, he tries to figure it out. And it was funny because most of the video is like, he's very open. He's like, I just kept getting sidetracked and watching random YouTube videos and getting distracted, and ADHD was a real monster. But he works on it, and eventually he gets basically like a really, really simple concept of you're a Viking and you run through this snowy forest, and like these creatures attack you and you just have to survive multiple waves. Really simple, but it works. And he did it. He put it together. Now, it does go to show you, I think, with all of this, just how difficult it can be to get something like this working. This was probably my favorite part.
Like,
He's trying to film source video for his animations.
So fucking cringe. Here we go. Jump. I need a jump.
You do.
Oh gosh.
I want you to under the fan.
Come on, Brianna. Front idle.
Don't worry, I'm not
Got
going to
it.
show all of them.
Side, same one. Yeah. Sneezing animation.
And you can stop. I think everyone looks bad when they run.
I was bad.
Everyone does.
Insecure. The Insecure animation. Just, it's a good time. It's really funny. So I recommend you go watch it if you're interested. You guys know, like, I've been working on the very, very early stages of a game myself. And my end game, like, I don't know what exactly will happen, what my strategy will be. I think most likely I'll be working to get a couple of other people involved that have talents I don't have. So get somebody that's like a programmer to come and help me on that side instead of trying to teach myself that. And that way we can all focus on the stuff that we're good at. But what I've always wanted to do is to kind of cut a documentary of the development process from the very, very beginning, from like the first thought all the way through to the end. And so, like, you know, imagine in like 4 or 5 years, if my game like comes out and you are able to like check it out for the first time, I'd also like to release basically a documentary that, let's just say, like started today, and it travels from the initial, okay, we're going to start working on it, all the way through to the launch of the game. And it's a full like 5-year documentary series, kind of like Raising Kratos, you know, basically from the very start of the idea all the way through to the launch. That would be my hope. So even if the game sucks, at the very least, we got something interesting out of it, you know? I think that could be super, super cool. Hire John Carmack. Okay, I'm sure he's free. I bet he's available. Yeah, if we do it, yeah, we'd have to put in like little nods to some of the memes from the streams and stuff, with like the Kojima character crying gummy bears and stuff, just like the most insane stuff. I think it'd be funny, but we'll get there. I used to think that guy was Yulu. I've actually gotten that a lot. People have asked if we're brothers, which is funny. It is funny. He makes really good videos. He's very good at it. How do I feel about the Borderlands movie trailer? I don't. I don't. I don't really feel about it. I don't know. I'm already kind of burnt out on a lot of these bigwigs trying to appeal to gamers. It's like, yeah, see, we're just like you, and we hired these actors to play video game characters, even though they've never touched a video game in their life. At least with like the Witcher series, you could tell Henry Cavill, he understood the character because he had read the books, and he understood the expectations of the core fan base because he had played the games and everything. And so he understood what people were looking for. And so often with video game adaptations, it doesn't go that way. One of the interesting, I think, subversions of expectations was with the Last of Us TV show, because they specifically told Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal not to play the games because they didn't want them to have their performances altered trying to do what was done in the games or trying to not do what was done in the games. They just wanted to bring purely what they thought they should to the characters. And that worked out pretty well. So I guess sometimes it can work out, but often it just turns into like, okay, that wasn't like honest to the characters or whatever. And I think most of it lands on like the direction, the scripting, all of that stuff, if it's actually true to the source material or not. But you know, first live video with you. Are you excited for Helldivers 2's first season? Oh yeah, we played some Helldivers last night, and I got to try out the mechs. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, should we touch on this? Let's do it. New segment. We're still working on the jingle, so just wait. So this tweet went kind of viral for all of the wrong reasons, and so I figured we should address it. Basically, this individual, Nintengod, posted, "The 30 FPS is unplayable narrative is one of the worst trends to ever happen in gaming. This asinine PC lames rhetoric." Maybe PC players are, they're saying they're lame. I'm not sure. Anyway, has you passing on great game experiences. Yet 95% of you can't tell the difference between 30 FPS and 60 FPS unless you're told beforehand. 30 FPS plays fine. First of all, let me say at the outset, I have defended 30 FPS games a lot. I don't think it's fair to like blindly dismiss a game purely because it runs at 30. Certain categories of games I won't be able to really play if they're at 30. Like I straight up can't do first person shooters at 30 FPS. They make me motion sick. It just does. My brain doesn't like it. And it makes me like after 15, 20 minutes, I like get hot and like kind of, it's almost like vertigo and my brain just cannot do it. I don't know why. Maybe I need to go see a doctor, but that's just how it is. So does that mean the game's bad? No. Like I also can't really play Doom games, like those id Tech shooter games. They also make me super motion sick for whatever reason. Even at like 100 plus frames a second, they just make me super, super nauseous. But that doesn't mean that Doom is bad. It just means that it's not for me for various reasons. And so I still would insist, just because the game runs at 30 does not mean that it's bad. I also don't really buy into the narrative nowadays that people say like if it doesn't have a 30 or if it doesn't have a 60 FPS mode, it's wholly unacceptable. I think resolutions are fair to hold to a standard. Like we're in 2024. I think it's fair to say 4K should be the standard. That's what was on all of the boxes for all of these modern consoles. It's all of the TVs and displays you're buying nowadays are 4K. So for a game not to be able to hit 4K, I think is broadly very disappointing. At least if you like do 1440p and you upscale, at least then you're kind of hitting it. But games that are releasing at like 1440p flat, I think that's largely unacceptable. And I think more than anything, just offer a performance mode. Render at a lower resolution. It might look a little fuzzy and not great, kind of like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Performance mode on that is not great, but at least it lets you play at 60 if you want. So they offer you that option. But this part right here is just, I know it's probably hyperbole, but it is flatly ridiculous to suggest that 95% of people can't tell the difference between 30 and 60. 30 and 60 is really easy to tell the difference between. I'd say once you get to like 120 versus 140, maybe people would struggle. I think 144 to 240 will be even harder to tell the difference unless you've played games like that. You'll be able to tell once you start moving and playing the game, but that could perhaps be more fair. And then certainly like 240 to 360, that I think most people probably wouldn't really be able to tell much of a difference. It would really depend on the game and their experience with them. But 30 versus 60 is like super, super noticeable, like very, very noticeable. Let's see, FYI, the game Nintendo The game is Nintendo's new IP, Astral Chain, developed by the Gods Platinum Games, highly rated and regarded as one of the best action games of all time. I just read that. Innovative, intense combat that is fluid, addictive, and amazing. Imagine calling yourself a gamer and skipping an absolute masterpiece because it's 30 FPS. Couldn't be me, never will be me. That's a fake gamer, PC tech zombie mindset. I will consume an all-timer without hesitation in all of its 30 FPS glory. A great game at 30 FPS is still a great game at 60 FPS. A shit game at 30 FPS is still a shit game at 60 FPS. Higher frame rate never determines whether a game is great or quality. PC simpletons focus on that because it makes them feel like they have an advantage over console gamers. Gaming revolves around console gamers. You PC clowns are the side chick. Know your role on the totem pole. Okay. I think, isn't using totem pole as like in common vernacular, isn't that problematic now? Can't you get canceled for that? I feel like that's no longer allowed. Anyway, yeah, then there's also a community note, which I just find funny. A 2015 study suggests most people can discern higher frame rates when presented films at varying rates. Additionally, frame rate provides an objective difference in both skill and general enjoyment in the context of games, considerably more so than resolution. The reason I love seeing community notes like this, though, is because when your post is community noted, it's no longer eligible for monetization, which is primarily driven by the views on the tweet. So that's why you've probably seen an uptick in like rage baited posts or people just trying to get everybody really upset or pissed off at them, because when the posts are retweeted by big YouTubers or by like big streamers and stuff, it increases the view count and then they get paid out based on that rage bait engagement. But when it's community noted, it no longer is eligible for revenue, which is kind of funny. However, all of this to say, I think it is totally fair to say that, where was it? A great game at 30 FPS is still a great game at 60, and a terrible game at 30 is still a terrible game at 60. Redfall, it's a bad game. I don't remember if they brought 60 FPS to it yet, but even at 60, that game will still be bad. Absolutely true. And a game that's really good at 30 will still be really good at 60. Absolutely. If you take Red Dead Redemption 2, you play it on console, and then you go over and you play it on PC at 60 frames plus, yeah, it's going to be even better. It's going to be great. Absolutely. I think the core discussion here, though, is like it goes to show you how you can be making a fair point, which absolutely fair to say that 30 FPS is unplayable. Is a narrative. It's one of the worst trends to ever happen in gaming. I don't know if it's a trend beyond just like Twitter. I think Starfield showed that even on 30 at 30 FPS, people will still play games even if they were throwing fits about it. People are like, no, if Bethesda releases Starfield at 30 FPS, the game's gonna flop. It ended up having millions and millions and millions of players. People largely just didn't really care, and they got over it pretty damn quickly. It's once again another reminder that Twitter isn't real, or sorry, X isn't real, and it amplifies voices beyond and out of proportion. So you'll have a very, very vocal minority that might be just 2,000 people, but in the context of the gaming industry, 2,000 people is nothing. That's a rounding error. But on Twitter or X, you can make a lot of noise with 2,000 people that are all retweeting each other's stuff and promoting it and getting in a tizzy. So just remember, X isn't real. Nothing is legitimate. However, it goes to show you that just because you make a valid point, which I think this is a absolutely valid point, 30 FPS is not unplayable. But if you make one like hyperbolic or bad faith statement trying to poison the well, it immediately discredits the rest of your argument. You know, the whole thing falls apart. If you're a little disingenuous at one stage in your whole paper, basically, the rest of the paper is thrown out because people are like, well, if you were disingenuous there, I'm not going to take you that seriously elsewhere. So be careful when you're making I think a very fair statement, and then you throw in something hyperbolic that allows people to immediately dismiss your opinion. And I mean, even like Mudahar, I think this is just funny. If you can't see the difference between 30 and 60, you need to see a doctor. LMAO. Yeah, I would agree. Now, you might not care. That's a different thing. Some people just don't care. My wife Nikki, she really doesn't care. Like I'll be playing a game and I'll be like, "Do you want to try performance mode?" And I'll swap it over to performance mode and let her play it. She's like, I don't know, it looks kind of blurry. Switch it back. Like she just does not care about the frame rate. It just doesn't matter to her. And I do think there's a lot of players and gamers like that honestly just don't really care. And that's fine. That's fine. But they can tell the difference. They just don't think the difference is worth switching and making the other sacrifices for. I do think the trend to push past 30 is a reflection of something else we did another segment on earlier in the week, which is that I do think there's a lot of people that are broadly frustrated with the lack of notable like leaps and bounds in performance in gaming right now. Like it really does feel as though for the last 4 years that we've been in this console generation, there really has not been a whole lot of massive leaps and improvements in performance. Like at least with the PS4 gen, like if I look up if we do like Uncharted 3 versus Uncharted 4. Yeah, look at this. So like Uncharted 3 gives you a pretty good idea of the quality levels we're looking at. Oh, dude, this was a really cool sequence. When the ship is like sinking and you're fighting through it. It was really cool. Where's the like cinematic differences? But then you jump to like Uncharted 4 levels. This is really crappy footage though. Hold on. Hold on, please hold. Need to change it. Need to change it. Oh, maybe this is going to be better. I don't know why everybody has to record footage at like 360p when they're doing comparison videos. What are we, IGN? But look at this. I mean, you can tell huge leaps and bounds from Uncharted 3 to Uncharted 4. Graphically, in terms of what you're actually able to do with larger crowds, in terms of what you're able to do with gameplay, like all sorts of stuff. It's just massively, massively improved console generation over console generation. And it feels like with the PS5 gen, we haven't really seen huge leaps like that. The biggest thing we've gotten are like SSDs are faster, so you get faster load times. We've seen that improved. Haptic feedback's cool, but it really does not feel like we've seen the same type of notable improvement. And I think that that's reflected in this frame rate discussion where a lot of people are like, if we're not getting huge graphical leaps, we should be getting 60 FPS. Let's do that. And so they've started to demand and expect 60 FPS from publishers and developers. And so when they don't get it, it's seen as a huge miss, even though the game might have been built from the ground up starting 6 years ago, before the PS5 even launched and before the Series X and everything else. And they might have been like, yeah, no, we're not going to target 60. All of these greatest games of all time have been at 30. So Red Dead 2 just launched and we're going to launch at 30 just like that. And it's going to be great. And then they get people on Reddit and X upset. But again, I mean, Twitter and X aren't real. And Reddit is, you know, an echo chamber as well. So you just end up with people that sound very loud, but aren't actually, I think, representative of the broader community. A lot of dev tools have been made to make things easier and quicker for devs and artists, not more performant. Thus, devs don't know how to optimize as proper anymore. Tech artists speaking here. That's really interesting on Earthly Whales. Like, and I think that that's also something you can see a lot in these Unreal Engine 5 games or Unreal Engine 4 games as well, where they're big and in cutscenes and stuff, they can look really beautiful. And technologically speaking, they're very impressive, but it doesn't actually seem like there's a lot of optimization going on. And it's probably because they're building kind of with blocks instead of more minutely controlling each and everything. I think it was it Callisto Protocol? I'm trying to remember which game it was. There was one Unreal Engine game. You guys will have to remind me which it was. But there was an Unreal Engine game where they were describing how they were using the blueprint system for all of these like animations and logics and stuff while building the game. And as they got closer to launch, they were going to go back through and redo all of those blueprints kind of by hand to rewrite them to be more efficient. But in the process of doing that, they ended up breaking everything. Maybe it was Redfall. Maybe Redfall's what I'm thinking of. But they spoke about it very openly, or at least a couple of devs did, and basically broke down that, yeah, no, the game was running pretty good and everything was working, and then we went back in to optimize it and broke everything. everything kind of fell apart, you know. And I think that that's something we've seen a lot, so that would absolutely make sense. Let's see. Also, Jumper Sammy, thank you for subbing with Prime over on Twitch. Appreciate you, my friend. Thank you. Let's see here. Oh, Dawn, that one's...
Don Magix donated $5 through Super Chat.
I pressed the wrong button. This is a Super Chat from 3 days ago. Still, thank you for the Super Chat, but yeah, it's from 3 days ago, which is why we talked about it in the last stream. I was like, I swear I've seen that one before. That's what I get for pressing buttons. I don't know what they'll do. Okay. Also, thank you, Mark, for the 10. Very generous. TV technology has advanced so much that any 30 FPS game, especially on an OLED, is rough. You will see every frame drop. Everything is fine when you stand still, but the minute you turn the camera, yeah, it kind of depends on the settings. I think bigger displays, higher quality displays usually would warrant higher quality inputs. But again, like, it's why we did that segment just the other day on that Tale of Two Brothers. Is that what it's called? Tale of Two. I think it's Tale of Two Brothers.
Mark donated $10 through Super Chat. TV technology has advanced so much that any 30 FPS game, especially on OLED, is rough. You will see every frame drop. Everything is fine when you stand still, but the minute you turn the camera...
The minute you turn the camera, va-va-voom. Close that, close that. Where is it? Where is it? We just did this. Oh, here it is. Yeah, we did this clip, and it's basically just like a breakdown of this, but straight up with the dynamic resolution on the Series S, this game will run at 806 by 454. That is sub 720p, like by a lot. And granted, it's on the Series S, which is the weakest console besides like the Switch, of course, kind of on the market right now. But still, the Series S is effectively just kind of an amped up 1x from the end of the last generation in terms of power. That's at least how it's been described to me. So it's insane to see that we are getting games releasing now that can dynamically change the resolution even down to sub 720p levels. It's amazing. Yeah, it's sub 480p. Like if you were trying to watch YouTube videos in 2009 had higher fidelity than that. And granted, it's like, it's a different thing. It's dynamic resolution. It's, you know, games are more demanding, and it's certainly more graphically impressive than what you would get back in the day. But still, the fact that that's allowed to be released to the public is amazing to me. Like, you would think if they were looking at it and they're like, hey guys, we can't get this running above like 454p in these really busy scenes, so we need to delay the game until we can get it running better in these really intense sequences. Otherwise, like, the game's just going to look terrible on the Series S. But I think it's also a reflection of sort of a complacency, because they can put it out like this and gamers seem to be okay with it. And I that's why I think it's more fair to be upset about the resolution shortcomings than it is to be upset about like the frame rate stuff. Because when you have the game optimized well enough that the resolution can be done properly, it seems like optimization at that point is just a scalable issue. And So I think you'll get better results kind of demanding higher resolutions than you will for higher frame rates. Because with higher frame rates, all they do is they come in with like FSR2 or something. They render it at like 360p and then try to upscale it back up to 4K. And it looks terrible, but they hit 60 FPS, you know, whoop, whoop. But it's just unacceptable to me. Digital Foundry was a mistake. I think they kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to kind of the inner workings of games. And what I've noticed is a lot of gamers have opinions on this stuff, but they've lacked the vocabulary because they don't work in game development. They don't work in TV sales or in media creation. So they don't know how to describe, like, it looks blurry. It looks blurry to me, and it looks sharp at sometimes, but then it looks blurry at others. Like, you can kind of describe that. But then when you watch something like Digital Foundry and they explain to people, no, what that is, you're right, you are seeing that. And what it is a dynamic variable resolution. So it changes resolution to hit different frame rate targets, and it's dropping all the way down to this resolution when you go into this scene. And so it gives people the words to describe what they're seeing, you know. I do agree sometimes it can be, I think people can go too far where they're like, oh, well, you know, I tried to count the pixels on this screen and it seems that and like, they don't really know what they're doing. You know, Digital Foundry has a lot of tools they use for this stuff. And so I just don't think it's generally fair, but yeah. Series S hate is fair. The X is actually a really good console. I agree. The X is a really good console. The S is just the lowest common denominator for this generation. And there is reason to believe, and argumentation, I think, that could be made to say that the Series S has actually like single-handedly held back AAA cross-platform gaming this generation. I know like Xbox will not agree with that, but it seems to be the case pretty clearly that if you have to bring your game to a console that's barely more powerful than the last generation console, you're just going to end up making games that are basically last generation games in terms of how they utilize the technology, because it has to run on the potato. So you got to figure out how to get it running on the potato. And releasing it was just such a huge miscalculation. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. I mean, I do know what they were thinking. I shouldn't say that. What they were thinking is, it can be really useful to have a cheaper budget option for the console. And there are people elsewhere in the world, outside of like first world countries especially, where, shocker, 4K 75-inch TVs are not the norm. Okay, so like making a console available that runs at, you know, targeting maybe 1080p to 1440p, that will be good for them because they can get it cheaper and it's not overkill for their displays and stuff. I can understand that. I just think in the context of a console generation that's supposed to go 7-8 years, it was a bit of a blunder because it ended up holding everything else back. And we saw it. I mean, even with freaking Baldur's Gate 3, they couldn't release it on Xbox, not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't get the damn game running on the Series S. So they're like, yeah, I guess we just don't release on Xbox at all until we figure it out, if we can. And they had to go get a special exception from Phil Spencer, allowing them to release 2 different versions, one version on the Series X and one version on the Series S. And, you know, it's unbelievable that anybody could still be arguing that it's not a problem. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. I think it's a reflection of a lot of dishonesty if they're still holding on to that. It's like, you look pretty silly when you try to argue that. You look pretty silly because everybody can see it. Everybody knows it. But you're going to still die on this hill? Okay. Okay. Especially when we have the example of Baldur's Gate from like the guy that runs the company that makes the game. And he's like, no, we straight up couldn't get it running on the Series S. So unless we get an exception, we can't release on the Xbox. And so they made an exception and they allowed them to do it. But I think that it would fracture the Xbox community, which is why they don't do it. But I think if you really wanted to empower devs, you would have it so like It's kind of like different iPhone models where you have some apps or some games and things that work really well with the iPhone versus, or like the iPhone Pro Max, whatever, versus the cheaper models, because it's more powerful. It's a different thing. Just like, you know, when you buy a PC, it's like, oh, this game needs this graphics card to run it. I don't have that graphics card. I can't run it. Bummer. That sucks. I guess I'll just have to wait till I upgrade it. And it's going to be the same thing with Series S. It's like, yeah, you got a cheaper console, but it can't run necessarily everything that is pushing the graphical boundaries. But again, they don't really want that. They don't want to partition members of their community out. Which makes sense. I mean, I get it, but BG3 is the exception. We shouldn't hold games to that standard. Well, to be clear, I absolutely agree. It is the exception. That's why they made an exception for it. It was exceptional enough to get an exception. So absolutely, it's an exception to the rule. And they have not allowed other groups or other devs, as far as I'm aware, to have like different versions of their games launch on different consoles, you know. Tenacious Beagle, also thank you for the super chat. 11 days to go till Dragon's Dogma 2. Would you say someone who enjoyed The Witcher 3 will also enjoy Dragon's Dogma 2? It seems very similar in some ways. My understanding is that it's going to be a lot less narrative. So it's going to be like the gameplay of The Witcher 3, probably with a more robust combat system and more action RPG mechanics and stuff. So I think that will be similar, but narratively, I'm not expecting much. Oh, I was just joking, Juicebox, just to clarify. Oh yeah, you're. I mean, I figure it's exceptional. Yeah, it basically is. Yeah. Nobody should ever hold themselves to any standard that's higher. Absolutely. that would be too difficult. I agree. But yeah, I would expect if you like The Witcher, as long as you didn't like The Witcher just for the narrative stuff, if you liked it for the gameplay, I think you'll probably like Dragon's Dogma 2. 4K is a goddamn gimmick. I'll have you come over. Come over to my house. I'll show you the world. I'll show you the world in 4K. The difference between 4K and 1080p is ridiculous. The main thing is your display. If you're still playing on a 1080p display, of course you're not going to be able to tell.
Media donated $5 through Super Chat.
There you go.
The Series S subreddit would have you believe it's nearly as powerful as the Series X and that 1080p is still an ideal way to play games Tears of Joy.
Yeah, it's straight coping. I mean, if you are so... It's something I just don't understand. Like, there are subreddits for everything and sub-communities for absolutely everything. And so, like, if you care about your Series S so much that you go into a subreddit and join it to talk to other people about how awesome it is, like, you are on another level of fanboy and cope. Like, I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. It's just not something I would ever do. Like, I don't know, what even is an example? I don't even know. I got like a Krylon spray paint to base some models that I 3D printed. Like, I have that, and it's a good product. Like, it's fine. I'm happy with it. Am I gonna go join the Krylon spray paint subreddit and talk about how it's so much better than every other spray paint, and I can't get over how great it is, and everybody who likes other spray paints need to shut up and get over themselves? Like, no, that would be ridiculous. It's spray paint. Chill out. But like with a lot of this stuff, people still do it. There probably is a Krylon subreddit, isn't there? I bet there is. Krylon subreddit. Tactical gear. No, what is this? Maybe there isn't. Maybe we need to make one. Krylon. I think it's called Krylon, right? Did I just make it up? I guess there is not. Okay, there's not a Krylon subreddit. I stand corrected. stand corrected. I'm sorry, everybody. Oh goodness. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. Let's see what Maddie says about the state of Starfield real quick. I bet there's a spray paint huffing sub though. That surely has been taken down. There's no way they let that stay up, right? There's no way. Maybe they do. I don't know. Okay. You ready? Let's see. The sad state of Starfield. I don't actually know if there's been updates or anything. So let's see. All right, hold on. I guess I should say, ooh, this is like a trippy. This is a trippy way to start. So, new segment. Maddie, the one and only, the champion, the stunning, brave, and beautiful madman. He is going to talk to us about Starfield. Break it down for us. He follows it much closer than I do. I've kind of checked out. People have been asking me, Luke, where's the 3-hour critique of Starfield? I'm like, bro, I'd like to make it, but the game sucks my soul out through my fingertips. So much so, it's actually started to like corrupt me. See, my nail is black. That's where my soul has been sucked out of because I've tried to play Starfield too much. So Maddie's followed it closer. Let's see what, if anything, has happened or changed. There were rumors recently that the Starfield DLC was going to be announced soon, but I guess we're going to find out.
I think it's fair to say I've kept the spirit of positivity surrounding Starfield. I don't do it because I feel I have to, but because I genuinely enjoyed the game. Many people misinterpret that as me trying to be the glass half full guy when I'm just looking at it as it is, as I enjoyed that glass of water, if you will. And so I had fun with.
I also don't think it's bad to be a glasses half full guy. Like I do the podcast with Joe Raptor. The thing I love about Joe Raptor is that with a lot of games that I'm just like, nope, sucks. He's able to look at it as a glass is half full. He's like, oh, this glass is half full and it's warm. Maybe like coffee or something. It's good. I can get enjoyment out of this. Even if it's only a half full glass, I'm still glad to have it. And I'm like, I don't care. I paid for a whole glass and it's half full. I'm pissed off. Like, you know those friends that you go to the coffee shop with? And you order your coffee, like they get their coffee and it's like a venti, whatever. And then you get yours and the barista made a grande, but put it in a venti cup. And so you have like 3-4 inches of just air in this cup that you paid $35 for or whatever Starbucks costs now. And like, I paid for this. I'm already upset that I paid so much for this drink. So I'm going to get my money's worth and I'm going to ask them, hey, I paid for a venti. Can you please make a venti? I'm that guy. So I'm sure waitresses and baristas get annoyed with me, but I'm like, hey, I paid like $8 for a coffee. You can at least make it proportional to the cup. But Joe Raptor will be like, this chai is delicious. I'm happy. Even if it's only a little, I'm okay. And I'll go over it. I'll freak out.
Starfield, and I've never been afraid to say that, but I also had a lot of optimism for Starfield's future. You know, I've approached it like a live service product, for better, for worse. That's how I've looked at it. Bethesda's committed to years of updates, and I know this
is a bold editing move to leave the load screen in there. Maybe that's a subtle jab or something. I don't know. Normally when I'm cutting together videos, or I have Jacob cut together videos most of the time, I will ask him to like cut out load screens, cut out kind of dead air, dead space on the screen. But sometimes we've left them in because it's funny, especially with Starfield. Like you're talking about how slow the game is, and then you just throw like load screen after load screen after load screens. But in this case, it's just funny. I don't know if it was intentional, but I think it's funny,
if you will. And so I had fun with Starfield, and I've never been afraid to say that, but I also had a lot of optimism for Starfield's future. You know, I've approached it like a live service product, for better, for worse. That's how I've looked at it. Bethesda's committed to years of updates, and I know this may be a video that could eventually age like milk, but I have to talk about it as it is now as we approach the half-year mark, which is crazy since Starfield's release. We just made a video last week talking about Starfield 5 months later, which many people in the comments were surprised, going, what? Really? And also many people playing games since Starfield have said that it feels like Starfield has aged considerably already, which is not a good sign. But
I mean, I think the most damning thing for Starfield was that it launched right next to Baldur's Gate 3 and Phantom Liberty, both of which made it look ridiculous. I mean, it looked 10 years old instantaneously. In terms of like the RPG mechanics and stuff, granted, Baldur's Gate is exceptionally good. in the purest form. It is exceptional. It's an exception to so many of these. But still, like, it launched next to that, which made the narrative look terrible. And then it launched next to Phantom Liberty, which is a technical marvel. Like, that game looks and plays amazingly well. It's just so good. So it really was like a pretty good painting that you did that you're really proud of, but you put it next to like Monet. And then on the other side, you have like a drawing from one of those guys that can do like photorealistic pencil drawings. And you can't even tell it's not a picture. It looks like a picture, but it's done with pencil. And you're like, your painting is okay, but next to those, you look dumb. And that's basically what Starfield did for themselves, releasing when they did.
Other people's opinions aside, what I want to talk about today is the sad state I found Starfield in. As someone who enjoys the game, mind you, I know this could easily get spun into a super negative piece, and don't get me wrong, it'll be critical, but I'm looking at it as a fan who wants to go back and enjoy new things Bethesda's adding, and the pace at which updates are coming out, I think is fine. What's being added when you look at what was initially promised, which I'll bring up here. We've been reading all your feedback. We're going to start launching these new features, new ways to travel, city maps. For those of you who love shipbuilding, we're going to be expanding that with decoration options. New gameplay options is in the second paragraph. You'll be able to alter your difficulty. They talk about things like cargo capacity, carry capacity, ship damage, vendor credits, afflictions. They talk about survival mechanics. And in the bottom paragraph, they mention official mod support coming to Starfield with the launch of Creations early next year.
And I'm pretty sure none of that is in the game. I don't think there's even city maps yet. Maybe we'll talk about that. But I don't think there's even city maps. You guys remember when the game launched and everybody was like, how on earth did this release without maps of the city? It's madness. Reese, also, thank you for subbing on Twitch. I'm not sure. I don't remember if I called that or not, but thank you. Thank you for subbing. Appreciate you. And Kappa, also, thank you for becoming a member on YouTube. Hey, Luke, a couple months ago, I built a new PC through your promo with Apex. It's driving this week just in time for Dragon's Dogma 2. So hyped. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear it, Kappa. That's wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful.
Is now a member.
What a great time for it to show up, too.
A couple months ago, I built a new PC through your promo with Apex. It's arriving this week just in time for Dragon's Dogma 2. So hyped.
Hells
Smiles.
yeah. That's wonderful. Okay. Where was I? Mod support, it's too late. Should have been there day one. Well, a lot of people are worried that the mod support is going to be sort of like the half-ass thing where it's going to be like, yeah, you can have mods, but it's mostly paid mods that are available to people on console, and that's it. And you know, if that's all it is, that's going to suck. I think Starfield's just a particularly tough thing because it can't be modded in the same way that players, I think, were hoping for it to be modded. People were like, oh, they'll just quickly mod in the ability to freely roam across planets and freely, like they'll mod it so that you can go in and maybe fly between planets without having to fast travel, and we'll mod those out. And that's just not how it works. No part of it works. And I think that's why a lot of modders have given up on it, because it's just frankly more fun to go work on like another Skyrim mod versus this, you know.
So I have to imagine that a lot of this stuff should be arriving soon. But when I saw the March update for Starfield, it was one of those moments where I went, what are we doing? Like, why? I hate to sound like that kind of gamer because many people know I don't approach my coverage that way. But truly, I looked at the Starfield update, which we're going to go through today, and then talk a little bit more about the aftermath. And I went, what are we doing and why is it taking so long? I think
it's fair to be upset, though. Also, holy God almighty, look at this water bottle. Matty Hydrates, my boy. Well done. I tried to get one of these like Yeti. It's like an actual gallon. It comes in like a pail, like the big handle. I don't know if you guys have seen those. Yeti gallon jug. Yeah, these things. Oh, baby. Hold on. Images. Let me just show you. Let me introduce you. Yeah, these things. It's like an actual jug with a big old handle. It's like this big around. It's awesome. But yeah, look at this. it's outrageous. It works very well. It keeps you very, very hydrated. Look how monstrous that thing is. That's on the scale of this. This is crazy. Maddie's not slacking when it comes to hydration. I need to be better about that. I just drink coffee all day, every day. That's all I do. But that, I mean, that's tremendous.
I think part of the reason I feel that way more so is when it was Bethesda Game Studios independently, I thought to myself, okay, it's just them. They are a smaller team compared to most AAA efforts. Therefore, things may move a little slower than we're typically used to. But the market has sped up since between Fallout 4 and Starfield, between Fallout 76 and Starfield, where people demand content sooner. And when you have Microsoft/Xbox at your back, and they put everyone in QA on Starfield, and Starfield did have, whether it was critically received well or not, or fan reception was good or not, it did really well. The player base is there, where I thought Bethesda was going to hammer home updates quick. Now, I'm willing to be forgiving of the 2023 window after launch. You know, patch the game up, right? Figure some things out, create a roadmap, create a plan. You look at the top of the year, they've had some pretty sizable patches. I mean, seriously, take a scroll through the list that you're seeing on screen here. There's a lot in these patches, and I'm not going to poo-poo any of that. But what I will say is what's going to draw more people back in or have people give the game a second chance is new features, especially addressing feedback. For me, seeing the millionth Starfield update with a laundry list of fixes, you know what it reminds me of? And I wouldn't say this game was nearly as broken at launch, but it reminds me of Cyberpunk, where you just see this long list of quest fixes, art fixes, gameplay fixes, but no real new mechanics, if you will.
I think the difference, like Starfield was the best optimized Bethesda game I've ever played. Like, I think far and away. It was very, very impressive. Maybe you guys in chat can either back me up or correct me on this, but I feel like Starfield ran way better than any other Bethesda game I had ever played, especially in the first like 15 hours. It was very well polished and optimized. That being said, like the Cyberpunk was a broken disaster. Like no matter where you went in that game, it was broken. So it made sense why they put off everything else while they fixed it, worked on it, and then once it was running pretty well, they went into new content updates, and you know they added in Phantom Liberty. They do the 2.0 update and then the 2.1 update, and they do all this crazy stuff, and it really starts to snowball quickly. I'm hoping something like that can happen with Starfield. I just think for Starfield, the frustrations people have go beyond mere technical issues and stuff. With Cyberpunk, everybody loved the game, but they hated the experience the game gave them because it was like, I don't know. It was just a gem in a pile of crap, and you had to sift through and dig through a bunch of crap to get to the diamond. And once you got to the diamond, you were happy because you're like, "Ooh, a diamond! This is awesome! I really am glad I did this." But you still kind of smell like crap, and you're covered in crap because it was buried in crap. And with Starfield, I feel like there's not really that much crap that it's in, but it's like it's just like a concrete pad, and then there's maybe some like dust and dirt sprinkled over, like a 3-year-old fruit roll-up. And so you get to it, you open it up, and you're like, okay, well, it's probably okay. I'm sort of glad I did this. Like, it's cool to see the old artwork. Like, oh, maybe it's like I got a movie tie-in promotion thing. It's like, oh wow, look at that. That's cool. Like, but that's the whole thing with Starfield. There's not that there's a diamond in the rough. There's nothing like that. It's like, it's okay, and it's sort of in the rough. It just isn't the same thing. Was that a messy analogy? I agree.
And the reason I'm making
we
this
got
video
lost
now
in the
is,
sauce
again,
a little
you
bit.
go back to the promise that was made, which was, for example, at the top of the new year, beginning early next year. We're now in March, and we already have the March update, and it's going to be another 6 weeks or so until we get another Starfield update. And yes, you see that Creations is supposed to be launching then. And I think this is very much pivotal to the lifespan of Starfield. I'm not one of those doomers that I've seen videos on acting like Starfield's modding community is dead. There's a shit ton of mods already, and it's only going to grow more with the addition of the modding kit. We'll see how far things can go, but I strongly believe, like with every previous Bethesda Game Studios game, that the gaps will be filled once more by modders. So until there's real true reason to have extreme concern about that, I'm not doing on that front. But the one thing I would say is Bethesda, clock's ticking. You got modders that are kind of abandoning your project to go work on like older IP, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and you need to draw them to your new product because they're going to push you forward just like they've pushed you forward for Fallout, like they pushed you forward for Elder Scrolls. Like, you kind of need to be on that. So I have to say, I thought the modding kit would be out by this point in time.
Also, it feels like to me, if you say early 2024, it feels like that has to be in the first quarter of the year, right? After the first quarter of the year, I don't think you can still say it's early. You know? Like if it's the first half of the year, just say it's the first half of the year. Yeah, it's coming out in the first half of the year. Okay. But it feels like after 3 months, it's no longer early 2024. Like we're in the middle of the year at that point, right? Or am I just like being a bugaboo? But it feels like early, I immediately think at the latest end of March. But apparently like they're not bringing a lot of this stuff until probably April, May, June. Like it's crazy.
It's disappointing to see that's not the case. But more than anything, you look at some of the features in this newest update. Photo mode, new expressions and poses on the player and companions in photo mode. Scanner, this is a solid one. You can open doors and harvest with the scanner open. So you don't gotta put it away, interact, but not like a real big deal, right? Other options here. Setting course on an inactive quest will now make it active. Added support for adjusting FOV when using third-person chip view. Added a quality slider on PC. Removed the digipick cost for using undo during the security minigame. Added an autosave when fast traveling from a planet's surface to orbit. It's crazy that actually wasn't in the game in the first place. And updated the ship UI to perform more smoothly at higher frame rates. Again, look, if this was Bethesda on their own, I'd be like, all right, fine, let them cook. But you look at some of these updates, and I'm going, guys, if you have Xbox at your back, like people were expecting a pretty big push after Starfield came out. I'm just leveling at this point, man. Like,
I mean, Phil Spencer said that he had assigned, I forget the name of the team, but there's like a specific team within Xbox that specializes on like software optimization and polish and QA basically. And he said that they were working on Starfield in the lead up to the game's launch, which is probably part of the reason that it was the most. I agree. Somebody, I forget, it got buried in chat. But somebody said it wasn't really optimized. It was Kinomansky. Optimized, polished maybe, but not optimized. PC performance is not the best. I agree. I should clarify. Polished, not necessarily optimized. So they had a group of devs and a team that they put on the game in the lead up to its launch that was specifically trying to polish the game and sort out QA issues. I don't think they're still working on the game. I think they worked through launch and maybe a little bit after launch to help iron out some issues. But I would highly, highly doubt that Xbox still has teams of engineers working on this. If anything, they've probably reassigned that team to go work on something like Hellblade 2 or an upcoming game that is going to be the next big thing. Because the whole model around Game Pass is that they have a big release that generates some hype, that justifies the subscription for people in their mind. And the only time that they'll continue to really work on games, it seems, is when that game generates long-term playership. And Starfield, I think, has the potential to do that, but it's more content updates, not stuff that the QA team would necessarily be working on. So like maybe they do still have people at Xbox helping polish and refine the game and do bug fixes like this stuff. But I would not expect that to overlap with the production of like actual content. That seems like something that is purely up to Bethesda and is more on them for dropping the ball on.
Like, there was a much larger expectation for post-launch support. So the question is, what's going on? Where is it? When's it going to happen? I don't think Bethesda's abandoned anything for what it's worth. And that's why I said this video could eventually age like milk. But what I will say is, I believe, if I were to wager a guess, what is the plan for Bethesda right now? I think modding will come out within the next month. It has to. It has to sooner rather than later. It's already pretty urgent. I think it's even more urgent when you get into the month of April. I do think Bethesda may be sitting on their bigger updates and additions. Why is that? I do think back to that wave of criticism that slammed them outside the release of Starfield, right? I mean, it wasn't just a couple of people. If you search Starfield on YouTube, I'm sure all you will find is extremely critical videos of the game. Any recommended Starfield video to me has not been positive. Okay.
Sorry, Maddie. Sorry. It's probably me. I'm sorry. I'm still so shocked that we're in this spot because a year ago, people were like, no, Starfield's probably going to be pretty good. I mean, the hype was starting to get a little out of control. You guys remember, the hype was a little crazy. It was a little crazy. And like, there were some times we put out videos on like the main channel. I remember putting out videos and segments on this Luke Stevens live channel. And there were people that were not particularly nice about it. People started losing their absolute minds. And then the game launched. And once again, we saw hype makes you stupid. Hype kind of drives you a little crazy. Hype puts blinders on and you start to say and do some silly things. And we started to see it. I mean, it just got pretty outrageous. But it's why like keeping a level head, being a little more critical can take you very, very far in life. You just have to be very consistent. And if you're consistent, you can go a long way, and you'll be shocked at how often your impressions and opinions on games end up being validated.
Okay? And that's just the honest truth of the matter. People had a lot of hopes for Starfield, and in many cases on a critical level, it did not deliver to people. And even if I enjoyed it a lot, I get where people are coming from, and you need to address those people. So if you're Bethesda, do you piecemeal those updates? Do you gradually roll them out? Or do you wait when people are looking at your game again and not just covering it on like a basis I may be doing? When people are looking at your game again and say, hey, a lot of this stuff has just been added to the game. What do I mean by that? We know Shattered Space is coming this year. At the end of year update for Starfield, they confirmed at the bottom of the blog post that Starfield is coming at the end of 2024. Okay, great. So you got to show that off sooner rather than later. I think it's a pretty safe bet since Xbox has already confirmed their summer showcase that Starfield's Shattered Space expansion will reveal itself here.
Reveal itself. Love it. Maddie actually in I think it was one of his recent videos, he broke down something that was really, really interesting to me, which was just the difference in pace for Fallout 4 updates versus Starfield. Like Starfield at this point has been out for over, what was it? It was like late August, early September. So September, October, November, December, January, February. Now we're into March. So it's been out for over 6 months, which is already crazy. The time's flown by that fast, but it's been out for over 6 months. And Fallout 4 at this same time, it released in November. So November, December, January, February, March, April. So by April, they had already gotten 2 pretty sizable updates. And by the end of the 7th month, they got Far Harbor, which was a pretty sizable DLC update with all sorts of narrative content. And I think it's the best part of Fallout 4, honestly. So, and then within just, a few more months that we'd got Nuka World. So by the time the game hit its 1-year anniversary, there were all of these DLC updates and content updates and 2 narrative expansions as well. And with Starfield so far, we've got nothing. And by the time that we get to the year mark, we might have Shattered Space. Hopefully we'll have Shattered Space and maybe some little things here and there, but there really has not been any sizable update or content drops for the game, which is just very surprising. Because again, they promised like city maps, they promised to have new ways of traversing, which everybody was like, okay, so vehicles and like motorbikes and stuff. And there's just nothing. There's nothing. You guys are saying he'll get there? Okay. Okay, Juice. Sharded Space. Okay, that's funny. You got me. Sharded Space. Okay, that's a layup. If the game... if the expansion ends up being terrible, that's what we'll call it. Oh, that's a layup. Oh, that's right there. Oh, wow.
What would be a good way to get people into the Starfield mood and say, hey, look at all the things we've done thus far? Tell them, hey, this big update, it dropped right now, and it's free, and it adds X, Y, and Z. Right now, again, you go back to this end-of-year update, and they mention things like the city maps. They mention new features like new ways to travel, new gameplay options. And I don't know if all of this is going to hit at once, right? This is kind of their plan for what I think is the year. So I don't think all of this is going to hit at once. But what if a massive update hits Starfield around the timing of them announcing Shattered Space? You have that there, And now you have the attention and maybe a little more optimism building once more. Right now, does Bethesda truly stand to gain if they put out a couple of great free updates and people across Reddit, Twitter, maybe a video or two from me and other people still playing Starfield look at it and go like, hey, this is pretty good. Yeah, you might want to check it out. Or do you wait for the moment with the big pop? And if you're Bethesda, I think you can kind of win either way, but I think the latter has a bigger payoff if you start to address those real concerns.
I absolutely agree. I actually think the slow drip would just be a mistake flat out, because I think in the age of TikTok and YouTubers and toxic people like you and me, I think the key is to make a big splash, get content creators to try the update and promote it, and then you'll get some buzz, and if it actually is improved significantly, you'll see a big payoff from that. So what I would do is, for one, transparency and discussions have to be much better. Like, they have to communicate clearly. If the creation club or creations, whatever the mod thing is called, I think it's creations, if that's not coming out in the early part of 2024, be clear and be like, it's coming in the middle of the year. You have to be very precise. Like, you can't keep screwing up and misstating things. Beyond that, I would probably look at doing a big like Starfield 2.0 update. Frame it like that. This is a massive update. This is, we're adding all of this stuff people have been asking for and some other stuff they didn't even know they wanted. And we're bringing Shattered Space. So it's going to be a big narrative expansion. All of this stuff is going to be amazing. Everybody's going to love it. If they did that, I'm going to make a video on it. Maddie's going to make videos on it. Everybody's going to try the update and see if it actually is that good. And if it is actually improved and significantly better, players will start the game again, go through from the very beginning, and then you see that renaissance of the game really take off. And I think you started to see that towards the end of the Cyberpunk 2077 sort of fix life cycle, where they did these big, like, I think it was the 1.4 update. Was that the big one? They did like a 1.4 update, and then they did the 2.0 update, which was totally reworked and everything. And then the 2.1 update, then Phantom Liberty. And each time it was like a very recognizable, easily marketable thing. This is a huge leap. It's going to be great. And I think that that's one way to combat what Fearless Wolf is saying, which is that it's forgettable. I think little updates are very forgettable, but big updates at least can make a splash and potentially drive some attention. Fearless, thank you for the 10 great British pounds. Appreciate you, my friend. Its problem is it's forgettable. That's why Skyrim, ME, Mass Effect, and Fallout are all great because of the pacing, world characters, and stories. Starfield doesn't have that. It's more like a chore, and Todd's sales sucks. I mean, I do think it's surprising that there's not really a clear hook for Starfield. Like, the way it was described to me was that, I forget who it was. It was somebody that covers a lot of Bethesda stuff. I don't think it was Maddie, but I saw a TikTok from them, and it was like, I'm trying to find a way to describe Starfield that's really easily identifiable. And I feel like with Elder Scrolls, whether it's Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind, you can always point to one thing and it pops in your head and it's very recognizable. And it's like, that is Skyrim's thing. You know, it could be with Skyrim, it's the really unique leveling system, or it's looking to the stars to level up and stuff, the really unique UI. There's all these things that it does really, really well, that are just really good. And the open sandbox thing. And with like Fallout, we have VATS and we have all of these other systems that are very unique to it in the Pip-Boy. But with Starfield, it just feels like it just feels like it's Fallout in space, but like a worse version of Fallout. You know, there's just nothing really that it does great. And my problem with Starfield that I mentioned in my review back late last year was that there is nothing Starfield does better than its competitors, like than its peers. There's nothing it does better. There's, no matter what feature you look at, another game right next to it does it far, far better. Not just a little, but far better. There's nothing that Starfield does that it's the best at. And I don't think that that's been the case for most Bethesda games in the past. Bethesda's amazing at world building, at set building, at telling stories through the world design and through things you discover in the environments, also known as like environmental storytelling. And in Starfield, that's pretty much entirely gone because it's so formulaic and it's just locations copy and pasted across the map, and there's just very, very little that's truly unique about it. And I think a big DLC expansion could help with that, but yeah, the shipbuilding is really good. I will give you that. Maybe shipbuilding is the one thing you could say that it does better than its competitors, because granted I've not played much of like late game No Man's Sky, but at least Starfield's shipbuilder seems to be really, really good. Let's see. But if we make 2.0s the norm, companies will be further incentivized to release now, fix later. How do we stop that? I don't think they'll be incentivized to do it, because a game is going to be much more successful if you just do it right the first time. The thing with 2.0s is like most dev companies would rather not to have to make a 2.0 at all, because a 2.0 can take a year or two of dev time that you could have spent working on a sequel or working on DLC you're going to charge for separately. You know, doing a 2.0 update, spending 2 years, 3 years developing that and trying to fix the game when it should have just been good to begin with, that can take the form of hundreds of millions of dollars wasted, you know. And there was a real, I remember reading an article from an analyst that specifically specialized in like video games and online entertainment and media. And this was probably back in like early 2021. And the article basically was arguing that Cyberpunk's developers, CD Projekt Red, should walk away from Cyberpunk and just move on straight to The Witcher 4. They're like, it was poorly received. People didn't like it. Move on. Don't waste money trying to fix it. You put out The Witcher 4, people will still love it. People will still buy it. Doesn't matter. The goodwill is just, it's a big hullabaloo. It doesn't really matter. But to their credit, they worked on it for years to fix it. And that 2.0 update, like, they didn't most likely make back any of the money they spent fixing the game. They probably got some added sales through word of mouth and stuff. But usually it was on sale on a discount and stuff. And, you know, I don't think that they necessarily made back the money they were looking for. Or that they spent on it. And I think that's to their credit, that they still did it, even though it might not have been the best financial decision. And investors probably would have preferred that they just moved on, you know?
Especially if the one thing we're not talking about, we're all going over free updates, is what does Shattered Space bring into the picture, right? What is that going to address, if anything at all? Because I feel like you have to have these smaller, free, incremental upgrades throughout the lifespan of the game year by year. But then the expansions have to bring new planets, new cities, new features, new mechanics. Like, they have to bring the big guns out. So what does Shattered Space bring out that maybe was missing from the base game is what I'm keen to see. And that's where I think things lie right now. But there's no denying that Starfield, I think in its current state, it's pretty sad, especially as we covered in our 5 months later video for Starfield. I look at Fallout 4 and how quickly DLC came out. And yes, I'm not going to have rose-tinted glasses. I was complaining up a storm at how much workshop DLC Bethesda was doing. But we also got things like the Automatron DLC. We got Far Harbor. We got Nuka World. And that was in...
Yeah, and I know back in the day, like, people were upset that these updates were just, and these DLC were small, like, improvements to the crafting stuff or this or that, and it felt like stuff that was cut out of the base game to be sold back later. And whether it was or not, I'm not sure, but it was still content updates. It was still new stuff. Like, at the very least, if with Starfield they did like, okay, for $5 we're bringing all new, like, craftable habitats and stuff, and you can do this and this and this, and you know, that would at least be something. But with Starfield so far, it's all just been bug fixes and things like that.
Like, what, a 5 to 6 month span? It's almost been 6 months and Starfield has got nothing. It is definitely disappointing. I can be sympathetic and understanding to maybe after Starfield launched, the team took a break, got back into the swing of things, pushed out a couple of final updates for the year. But it's not even just me zeroing in on this single update. One of the last updates for the year for Starfield in 2023 was maybe like 3 or 4 bullet points long. It just felt like the team was scratching and clawing their way out of an arduous year and had to reset mentally. which again, I can sympathize with, but I am just reading from the outside looking in, speculating pretty heavily here, pretty liberally here. But I will just say that I think these updates need to be more. As a fan of Starfield, I look at them and I'm not going back to it. I'll be real, like I don't give a shit about photo mode, man. Like why is that a targeted feature right now? Why are you not targeting exploration? Why are you not targeting fun gameplay options? Why aren't you targeting survival mechanics? Like, why is it little, I guess, bullshit features that are being targeted first? I get cleaning up bugs and fixes, like that should be as big a priority, of course, to make Starfield as polished as it can be. But why on a feature level are things like photo mode being targeted initially? Like, save that for later when you're close to the release of Shattered Space. Like, that's not, in my opinion, nearly as urgent.
One thing could be that they have, it seems like Bethesda is very segmented, so they have different teams working on different things. And so when they're working on fixes and stuff, they probably assign it to each individual team. So, you know, the combat team will handle combat fixes, and the team that handles in-game like dynamic systems will be handling those when they break. And, you know, so you have each individual team working on fixing their own thing that they specialize in, which kind of makes sense. Like if you know this thing because you built it, you're the one to fix it versus some other guy that's gonna have to come in and figure out how it works. So it very well could be something as simple as that. It's just like, yeah, the guy that did the photo mode, his fix was really simple. It was on his to-do list. He fixed it. Boom. So it ends up in the patch notes. Whereas, like, you know, fixing something like survival mechanics might be a lot more complicated because there's a lot more moving parts when it comes to survival mechanics or combat fixes and things and exploration fixes, because those are so vast. You know, it's not that easy to just go in and change things around. I'm a simple man. Just make some attractive characters, then we can talk. Yeah, it's just fascinating to me. Again, if you rewind the clocks a year, I don't think anybody would have thought we'd be in this spot. I think everybody would have assumed that Starfield still would be kind of the talk of the town, but instead it's really kind of fallen off a cliff in terms of engagement. There's still people playing it. You can see on Steam DB, people are still playing it. Thousands and thousands of people are still playing it. But it seems to be a very dedicated group. It's not the mass market appeal game that I think people thought it would be.
Scanner update, I can get behind. You know, that one is solid because that is something that was annoying, just putting things away, taking it out. So good quality of life there. But I think we're at the point where we should have seen at least, and I don't think I'm greedy for saying this, one decent new feature to the game. That I'm talking is like that new way of exploring, or that new survival mechanic, or that new gameplay mode.
Freaking
like,
city maps.
Something new should have been ready by this point in time, in my opinion. If you've had over 5 months, not that they haven't fixed things, but you get my point. You know, I think there should have been something at this point in the game's lifespan that goes, oh, okay, we're trending in a certain direction now. It still feels like we're in month 1, month 2 with some of these updates. So let me know if I'm crazy down below. I'm wondering if you're
crazy. You've lost your mind. I'm glad to see Maddie trying to call them out a little bit for this, because I think they don't generally care that much what more skeptical people say. I'm also going to relink the video in chat just so everybody can go give it some love. Go sub to Maddie. But I think it's good that we're now seeing even like fans of BGS and fans of these games come out and be like, guys, come on. It's been half a year and there's still just not much discussion about it. Like, there really just is not much here. Because at least we know that like Todd and the team at BGS, they do watch like Maddie's stuff. They do hear what these creators say. They probably kind of go into a bit of an echo chamber. They don't tend to hear a whole lot of what other creators are saying. If they're more critical, we've seen that in some dev interviews where they've talked about like, yeah, and the people that have negative feedback, you just got to ignore them and just focus on what you're doing. I'm like, it's kind of bad when you're just trying to ignore criticism, but okay. Yeah, I think it's good that Maddie's talking about it. I think it's good to see. And my hope is that they can continue to improve the game. But it's gonna probably be made or broken based on the feedback and how quickly they can get actual content out. Because bug fixes are fine, but bug fixes are kind of in their nature, they're not very exciting. They're not very interesting. It's just kind of meh. You know, it's like, okay, well, you did the thing that shouldn't have been a problem to begin with, so congratulations. But people expect more. What's the mouse you're using? This is a G502X. Funnily enough, this was sent to me by Xbox for Starfield, which is really funny. I'm using it now to crap on the game. Yeah, baby. Let's see. I got over 800 hours in Starfield. Jesus Christ. At this point, it's getting stale and needs more content. I fully agree. Dude, after 800 hours, I would think any game would get stale. But, like, good God almighty. That's remarkable. That's fantastic. Starfield is 6K concurrent. Cyberpunk is 23K concurrent. That's crazy. I mean, the other thing is that Starfield, a lot of people played it through Xbox Game Pass. So those numbers might not be super reflective of reality, I think. It's not super clear. Okay, here's my dilemma, guys. So somebody earlier in the stream and chat put in this and said, Gaming Wins posted a video on everything great about Suicide Squad. And so it's like a half-hour breakdown of what he really likes about the game. I'm genuinely curious about this, but here's my problem. I don't really like... I don't want to step on anybody's toes, right? Like, I don't want to do like a reaction analysis thing. Even like we're very clear, like we're transformative in our stuff. People get annoyed because I pause the video so much and kind of go full ADHD mode. But I don't want to like step on anybody's toes by doing that. So I think what we'll do is we can look at it briefly at least. And for Jacob out there, I think what we'll do is we just won't publish the stream clip of this for a couple days or a few days. It's okay, Luke. Just don't say he's a friend of the channel. Yeah, dude, that was so stupid. So you're upset? I said you're a friend. Okay, we're not friends. You're not. You're my enemy. It was so stupid. It was so stupid. Try not to talk about Suicide Squad challenge. Difficulty extreme. Yeah, basically. Man. Oh man. And even I don't actually know Gaming Wins. I don't know his content. People are saying in the comment section that he's an optimist. That's good. His most popular videos are everything great about these games. Oh, so it's like an inverse Cinema Sins. That's his format. Because he has like win counters. Interesting. That's a clever little gimmick. I like that. That's cool. And so he just goes through and talks about things he likes in the game, and that's like the content. Okay. Sin Win Community. Oh, so is he officially like affiliated with them, or is he like a different thing? I don't know. Well, let's, you know what? I want to, oops, press the button. Let's just see. I think we'll be able to tell pretty quickly if this is satire or not, because I'm not sure. Let's see.
I'm sure you guys didn't have this on your bingo cards for a Gaming Wins video. We all know this game was DBA, dead before arrival. After that first gameplay trailer dropped, we all knew and were heartbroken at the news. This isn't going to be a video of me trying to convince you to buy it. Don't. We gotta show Warner we don't put up with this. Which begs the question, why am I even making a Wins video for it? Not because I think the game itself deserves it, but because I think Rocksteady does. They were put on this project for the last 9 years after coming off the high of the Arkham trilogy and created a game that already has less than 1,000 daily players only 1 month after its launch. I love the Arkham games and wish Rocksteady wasn't strong-armed by their publisher to make this game. So
This is apparently a bit of misinformation, actually. I need to correct this at the outset because I believe it was, I think it was Jason Schreier. Rocksteady. I believe it was Jason Schreier. Let me see if I can find the exact breakdown of this, because Jason Schreier, I'm pretty sure, said that they wanted to do this. This was not an instance of them being strong-armed. They went from Batman Arkham Knight, worked on a VR game, the Arkham VR game that you might have played, and then they went and started working on some other IP live service co-op game, and then they were given the Suicide Squad IP to basically turn that live service game into and to work on that. So it's a narrative that's gone around. We used to think that this was the case, but it's not actually true. It actually seems, based on the evidence and the reporting from, like, I believe it was Jason Schreier, it might have been somebody else, but from the reporting of some journalists that have spoken to members of the team, Rocksteady wanted to do this. This was not a case of Warner Brothers being like, you have to do this now. They wanted to do this. And then it ended up being poopy. I wonder why. Like, my question is, was this an instance of, like, the studio's creators and founders being like, okay, well, we get paid out bonuses based on the revenue we generate. So maybe if we want to get ready for retirement, maybe we do a live service game and we just make a ton of money and then we ride off into the sunset on our yacht. Maybe that's what we do. You know, who knows? Who knows? But at the very least, it was, by all accounts, Rocksteady wanted to do this. Okay? So let's just not get it twisted at the outset. Wyatt, thank you also for the $10. Right here, let me see. I put about 40 hours on 4 different playthroughs. I feel like I've experienced everything it has to offer, whereas Skyrim still shows me new things 10 plus years later. For Starfield, yeah, 40 hours on 4 different playthroughs, so like whatever, 160 hours. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, I agree. It's just like, it's too repetitive. I absolutely agree. Deep, didn't some head of the development leave before the game came out? Yes. The founders left, but they left, and they started working on a new studio. And they announced that new studio maybe a month or two ago. And apparently a lot of Rocksteady veterans moved over. So make of that what you will. But again, thank you, Wyatt, for the very generous 10.
Let's find something to like, because I can't imagine working for almost a decade on something just for it to be ripped apart and tossed away.
Task Force X, stop sightseeing and see if you can kill everything in sight.
Rocksteady for sure threw us a bone, though. With dialogue like this right at the start, we have no misconceptions about what we're getting ourselves into.
That's a win. Okay, I see. We're really stretching here. Okay.
I am in a tunnel. It only has 2 exits despite its length. Seems highly inadvisable.
I mained King Shark throughout my playthrough and just love every line from Samoa Joe, and let me tell you, all of the actors here are giving their all. There isn't one performance that is lacking. That's going to be a recurring theme throughout this video, that there is so much done right except for the actual gameplay itself. It bleeds all over that this is a talented studio shoved on the wrong project.
That chose to pursue the wrong project. Again, to be clear. And this was something we also talked about with, like, because I would also say the writing is not very good, and it's been tied up in, like, the Sweet Baby Inc. discussions and all of that. Whether, like, you put the blame at Sweet Baby Inc.'s feet or not, I don't think that that's necessarily fair. They consulted. At the end of the day, Rocksteady still agreed to do a lot of this stuff. Like, it's not Sweet Baby Inc.'s fault. that they shoot Batman. It's not Sweet Baby Inc.'s fault that they actually literally piss on the dead body of a member of the Justice League. It's not Sweet Baby Inc.'s fault that they did that. Maybe it was their idea. We have no reason to believe that, but maybe it was their idea. But at the end of the day, it was still Rocksteady's writers and narrative designers that chose to put that in the game, whether they were advised to do it or not. So the blame still lands at their feet.
The experience would not be the same, Floyd Lawton. I would never ask you to simply look upon renderings of Atlantis. It must be experienced.
Is Shark just Drax? Sure. But does that take away from the candor that he displays at every turn? If anyone was truly to be a leader of the squad, my vote would go to Sharky.
I kind of prefer pictures.
I mean, it kind of does, though, because it's just straight up Drax. Like, it is straight up Drax. That's all it is.
Oh, new Deadshot phobia.
Nah, that ain't a phobia.
And thank God for it. Rocksteady was 2 seconds away from bad stereotyping. I'll have to admit, everything surrounding the gameplay actually feels good. The movement is fluid and responsive. The sound design and feedback is punchy and satisfying as hell. And no matter how hard I try, monkey brain likes a fountain of numbers. Ah yes, foreshadowing the one thing that Boomer wants to do to his arch nemesis. Boomer having the Speed Force, Harley with Bat's grapple gun. I won't lament any longer than I have to. Or that you
I didn't realize that he pees so much in the game. I guess
maybe
he does.
each of the members have an ability.
Oh, Dominate, the one and only. 12 minutes ago, it took me that long. I'm a professional streamer. Sorry. I don't know why I'm just now seeing that pop up. But thank you, Dominate. Appreciate you.
Of the Justice League that helps color them on top of a wholly unique moveset per character, instead of gameplay that is as repetitive as Warner Brothers making bad business decisions. So I'll leave that there and want to mention that traversal isn't nearly as fun or satisfying as Arkham games, but it is fast and fluid. With that said, I'm actually quite impressed with how this game launched, server issues notwithstanding. This, for me at least, was a super polished experience with no performance issues. Maybe
I'm just like, I'm cursed because you guys watched. We streamed the whole game while we played it, like almost from start to finish. I went through the tutorials and stuff off stream just because that's boring, but we played through the whole game on stream and you guys saw the technical issues we had. You guys saw the issues with like broken quest objectives and enemies not spawning in properly and things like that. Like we had a lot of it. And then I've seen a lot of people be like, oh no, well, didn't have any problems at all. Super polished, whatever. I'm really, really surprised that maybe I'm just really special, but I don't know. So when's your NDA over so you can tell us what you think about Dragon's Dogma 2? No comment. Nolan Dixon, thank you also for the 5. I'd love to see Rocksteady work on a Ghost Rider game, especially with their Batmobile tech used on the bike. I think that the Rocksteady that we used to know, it's somebody that we used to know. I don't think they're there anymore.
The delay this game copped was to fix performance issues instead of reworking the game. Warner was probably like, we were going to pull a Jedi Survivor, but we don't have the street cred to survive that.
Yeah, a little bit. But it's a balm on my soul in these trying times.
Between a lot of Harley's dialogue and her leadership taking on Batman, her new independent status and history as a doctor really shine through here. It's refreshing to see the smarter side of Harley and not just a crazy piece of ass.
Who's staying to play hero?
Oh, this is the start of their little high fives. Harley starts at 2. She's narratively more of the leader of the group, but I'm still a Sharky apologist.
She also, I don't know, Harley in the game is also just really lost the whole time. Like, I don't know, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad because I was also hoping that they'd like bond and the crew would kind of become friends in a weird way, but it never really happens. Instead, they just stay exactly the same the whole game through. And there's no development or arc or anything. They're just like, well, we're just doing this. That's it. And I think it's because they didn't write a whole story for the game's narrative. They wrote basically Act 1, and then the next 13 seasons or 12 seasons are supposed to be the rest of the story. Which is why, like, it doesn't even end on a cliffhanger. It ends like a mile away from the cliff, and you're like, oh, I think there's a cliffhanger coming up soon. But it's like, the stakes are so low at the end. It's really, really sad.
At the end of our story, if I had $1 for every time I've won that narrative device in a video, I'd be able to afford half a cosmetic in this freaking game. This is a direct reference to the opening of Arkham Asylum. Similar camera work, it's raining, a vehicle zooms past, and then, okay, it's fine. It's basically a recreation of that opening. Going from whatever the hell that intro was to this opening, clearly honoring their past, was jarring, if not welcome to see.
Yeah, no super jarring. It was really weird because they use the end game locations, the Elseworlds, for the combat tutorials, even though they don't really make sense of it narratively. I don't know why they didn't just do a combat tutorial in the actual game's world. Like, I don't know. It was really weird. I agree.
And even the music is super reminiscent of the older themes used for Arkham. And the Y on Arkham has been flipped upside down, informing us that what's about to happen isn't quite right.
Or it's been flipped upside down to symbolize what this game will be. You guys know what it'll be? Ass. Arkham ass.
That what's about to happen isn't quite right. Also, why as in, why is this a live service? Why did Warner hurt us this bad?
Exactly.
Why couldn't everyone be offered a full refund? Things like that. Another shot referencing the opening to Asylum. And we got cash! I can't lie, the first 30 minutes of this game had me excited. The respect I have for Rocksteady's previous entries carried my intrigue over the finish line to check this game out and give it its fair shake.
And then...
is obsessed with P in the Flash.
Dude, I didn't realize he's also drawing pictures of him pissing on the Flash. Dude, I totally spaced it, but yeah, straight up, they foreshadow it again. I didn't even realize. I needed to go back and watch these through again. That's funny. Okay, well, I guess I can't be. I can't say it didn't. I can't say it came out of nowhere because I guess they did foreshadow this a lot.
Boy is obsessed with P in the Flash. My God, didn't even notice this off rip. Is it just a thing going on right now on which game studio can make the best Deborah Wilson model? Like seriously, girls in everything. After discovering her in Jedi Fallen Order, I've always been a bit more excited for a project when she's along for it. The opening to this game is seriously strong. All our actors are bouncing off each other really well. The presentation is quite stunning, and I'd say they've pretty much nailed the tone of an S-Squad. And check that out. All going for a high five. It's the bomb this time. Neat way to bookend our team and their growth. We've got If You Want Trouble by Nick Waterhouse playing over this intro. The if is in parentheses basically saying you want trouble. While they're working with these four is basically just that. You might also notice this holding cell they are all in is the same one we start Arkham Asylum in our first fight. Her satisfied look. Getting them to implant the bombs themselves just shows a high level of control and understanding she has of the four of them.
Old school. Guess Miss Off the Books got something to tell us.
Or she just wants to play a game. Bringing us right into the Hall of Justice accomplishes three things. First, we get to speed up on the everything that happened between Arkham Knight and now, get a fix on what each of these heroes were like in this world before their fall, and give us a nod on what we're up against.
Miss you, Red.
Every nod and allusion to the Arkham games just makes me sad, but also reminds me how great those games are.
Yeah, it is funny. Like, there's supposed to be little nods like, look, we made that, but instead it just makes you sad and depressed. I also think, like, I mean, again, I saw somebody saying in the chat, you guys were like, Harley's like vulnerability and lack of like confidence and her kind of lostness is probably a Sweet Baby Inc. contribution. I don't know, maybe not, but there is a pattern here where for the Joker, the way that they framed this new Joker for season 1 is that he is a different universe Joker and he's more unsure. He's not sure who he is and like this and that. It's all about insecurity and stuff. He's not maybe necessarily a bad guy. He's just trying to figure out who he is. And that, to me, the fact that we have two characters now that we know very well in the form of Harley that doesn't really know who she is, and now also the Joker, granted he's an Elseworld alternative dimension Joker, but still, the fact that he also doesn't know who he is, I'm sensing a pattern that they're just trying to like, when you have the same character arcs and character archetypes apply to everybody, it makes everybody feel the same. And you can do that when you're writing the character from scratch, but when it's a character as well known as the Joker or Harley Quinn, there are certain things that you just reinventing it, you're just reinventing the wheel and it's going to be received poorly. Like it just doesn't really work. Like if you were to take Batman And you're like, okay, we came up with this new concept for a video game. It's going to be Batman. But Batman is addicted to mobile games. And so the whole game that you're playing, he'll stop doing missions because he has to do a bunch of gotcha like pulls and stuff in WWE Champions. And he needs to see if he can get those cards because he needs those sweaty JPEGs to feel justified in his life. And then he puts it back in his pocket and then he keeps fighting crime. And then he stops and does a few more pulls in this, all the while saying, no, I've never touched it. I would never bother with that. I'm not going to do that. And then he keeps pulling it up and keep doing it. You'd be like, okay, I understand you're trying to add like depth to this character. You're trying to add something new. But we know Batman. We know who he is. We know what he does, what he's about. You're reinventing the wheel. You already have an amazing character. You don't need to do that. You just don't. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. Just don't. Why is DSP Batman? No, Batman's DSP. It's a small distinction.
You guys should go play those ones if you haven't.
I'm in the middle of recon for Brainiac. Let's walk and talk.
On top of the Hall of Justice, Green Lantern just putting us at his mercy really drives it home and just how out of our league we are. I mean, when we even just heard the title of the game, we all thought, freaking how? I never took the title literally or seriously until I played the actual game.
And one dead body cut to pieces.
Oh, this is so freaking cool though. Seeing members of the Justice League in a AAA game is still exciting, even with all of this game's issues.
You guys get the memo? Big invasion. Crime's on a break.
I really enjoy this version of Barry, and really all the interpretations of the characters in this game. I know he's got bigger fish at the moment, but having Flash still try and protect us reminds us of why he's the hero. The scale of Metropolis is quite staggering. It honestly feels small when traversing. It's a shame that we can never really see it as we're above it or noise is clogging up the screen. But if you take time to really look at it, there's been so much detail pumped into it. It really stands out with its bright Art Deco style contrasted by the Gothic Gotham.
I think it's also fascinatingly enough, Suicide Squad is a great example of why traversal mechanics have to be balanced with the open world's design at the same time. Because in Suicide Squad, like, you move so quickly, you zip across the map, usually jumping and swinging. And so you're not walking through the streets, you're not looking at little details. Like, I'm guessing a lot of people who played the game never noticed that there's a building with a big chicken sign that says ho ho. Like, I'm sure a lot of people didn't even notice that because the game never would give you the chance to really notice it or look at it because you're always moving so quickly past it. It's the same reason why in like Assassin's Creed games, when you're on those horses that move stupid fast, like you just end up running past a lot of points of interest and interesting things that you could find and see because you're able to move so quickly. It's why I like in Red Dead Redemption 2 that the horses travel a little bit slower, much more realistically. And there isn't constant fast traveling and stuff because they want you to actually navigate the world yourself and get to know it and explore it and see every nook and cranny. And that leads you to the point where you discover really, really interesting things. But in the case of Suicide Squad, it's like a big, like these could be big just boxes and squares and rectangles and it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't really change anything about the game. Sure, they went in, they added like, oh, some vines here, and then we'll go over here and we'll add like this art on the side of the building for this. But there's no reason for the player to ever be walking around or exploring the world in a more delicate or intentional way. Instead, it's just moving from objective to objective, swinging and blasting through it as quickly as you can. If they really wanted to give players a lot to see, they probably needed to start the game with slower traversal and give you the traversal mechanics later. So you kind of start running around on foot. The city feels massive and huge. And then you unlock movement abilities later after maybe an hour or two that gives you a greater appreciation of their movesets, but acclimate you to the city itself. Giving everybody the ability to just zip past everything immediately makes it so, of course, nobody's going to really look at all of the detail you pumped in.
Gotham.
Quaking too fast to see.
Oh, now that's pretty damn cool. Each one of our heroes has personal history with a League member. Well, not shocked, but whatever. And to a degree, it's their own personal experience as to why they're able to take down each member. Okay, it's not perfect with each one, but I can see what Rocksteady was going for. You know, I'm grasping.
Dirty movie I ever saw. Oh, crap.
Even Bat's cutouts know how to jump scare. Even the sound of Arkham Bat's grapple is iconic. Oh, there he is. Though he's killing people and kind of a freaky weirdy, that's still our boy. And hearing his theme,
Yeah, this one mission was the coolest part of all of Suicide Squad.
they really struck gold. This boy deserved this, an entire level / museum dedicated to his trilogy. Being on the receiving end of what we've done to hundreds of baddies as Batman is terrifying. Not mentioning that he kills now. Outside of the multiplayer from Origins, this puts it in great perspective just how out of their element these guys were. I was following.
Which is interesting because this was the sequence that press got to play when they went to that preview event that was kind of poorly received, if you recall that. And this was actually the sequence we got to play during like the closed beta. So that closed beta, I got to play, but we had to sign NDAs for it. So I wasn't like able to talk about it at all. However, eventually they opened it up and they lifted the NDA so you could talk about it. You just couldn't show any gameplay. So I was able to still discuss it. And it was interesting because we ended up playing the same thing the media had played when they had negative opinions. So people were like, open up the NDA so we can talk about how cool it is. And it ended up being the exact same thing that the press had seen. And like now that we've played the whole game, this is probably the best part of the game. This is like we got to do a boss fight. Basically, we got to do the Bat Arkham Museum, whatever. And I think it's when the game is at its best. But still, like, it's in its best form, and we still were like, but it's still just not quite there. If there's a lot more of the Arkham Museum level encounters and stuff, we're in it. This could be really, really cool. But it turns out that this was the best the game got, and people were still, you know, mixed on it after all of that.
Falling for stuff I should have known better about. He really is just a horror villain, and seeing it completely leaned into here was inspired. Okay, I'll stop gushing about previous games being better than this one, but come on, this Batman theme is killer. Even while getting my ass beat, I'm still hyped about him. See what I mean? I should have known better. Don't worry, Bats. This moment will be coming back to haunt us. I mean, you later. Yeah, that was the Batman experience. I'd pay money for something like that. Imagine an escape room with the Batman hunting you. $1 million idea right there. That's yours for free.
Explain yourself.
Yeah, where you sign a waiver and they kick your ass.
Even with everything going on, this is what's on the forefront of Boomer's mind.
Here's his thumb. It just came off, I swear.
Step on me next.
Marley speaking for everyone and keeping up with her more exploratory side.
Yeah, his finger being cut off is also something they never really explained, because the next time we see the Flash, he has all of his fingers. So some people were like, oh, that is either a narrative mistake or it was intentional because like Brainiac can heal them, or it's not the same Flash and it's like a clone basically, or another dimension version of the Flash. And that's how, like, some people were saying data miners dug into it and found evidence that, like, Batman, for example, is not actually dead. It's actually an alternative dimension or, like, cloned version of him that was killed. And to me, I'm like, it doesn't matter. You still killed Batman. Like, you still killed the Flash. It doesn't matter if you're like, no, but it's technically different. You still, like, you still did it. You still did it. If you have a dog... and then you go, apparently they can do this. Like they can actually clone dogs. Like if you had a dog that you grew up with and loved, and then they clone it. And then you go and you're like, yeah, so now that I have the clone, I'm just going to shoot this dog. And it's fine because it's just a clone. It's like, no, you're still shooting a dog, you dummy. Like, what are you talking about? You're still killing the thing. Like, it doesn't matter if it's, well, no, it's not the exact same thing. It's just stupid. Like, I don't understand how that's supposed to make it better. Like, yeah, she shoots Batman in the face, and then Batman, a different Batman, comes out from the corner. I forgive you, Harley. Okay, like, what? It just wouldn't fix anything. It's baffling that it's a that anybody would say that somehow makes it better. You know, it's just crazy to me. It's but it's a clone. Yeah.
Exploratory side.
Your new mission is to kill the Justice League.
Waller out.
Gold.
Yeah, right.
Right. You think Warner would just give the horn dogs to Stafford for free?
Nah.
That's gonna be $20. So they couldn't just rip off the Guardians' first walk together, so...
Hey, Suicide Squad! You!
we get the next best thing.
But like also they're screaming F you. Someone's doing this, throwing a can. Like, who is allegedly doing it? Is it one of the staff members? Like, it's just kind of cringy. You know, hold on. I want to see what he says about, does he talk about the final fight, the final boss fight? Maybe.
It's honestly the only redeeming part of this game. Even with killing the most interesting and famous characters at their disposal, Harley, Boomer Shark, and Deadshot are all acted phenomenally and have some pretty good writing behind them most of the time, and they do pretty damn good as an ensemble. I found myself at every cutscene. It was only once they ended that I wanted to
this
shove
is funny. Hold on, look at this.
Batman would never try to make a joke like that. He's always funny through his pragmatism. This is why I huffed
Hey, back up. Hold on.
Little does Harley know she's about to do that to the player base.
Are we done with your bad stand-up routine?
Batman would never try to make a joke like that. He's always funny through his pragmatism. This is why I huffed the Copian that this isn't our Bat that is being put down. We had our final scene with him.
Yeah, but that makes it okay because it's a different Batman. So it's okay though.
But you always gotta end on your best joke.
Ironic, as Batman isn't the last member killed, because killing our Arkham Batman like this is not a good joke.
They lost a win counter.
Bad guys to save the world.
This is what I'm holding on to, not hitting everything about this. The real Batman imparted his final wisdom upon them, and they listened. Coupled with Harley's solemn reaction to killing him, there is some pretty good subtext that really lifts this scene. But boy, do you gotta work for it.
Bat's got the last laugh after all. Oh, he would have wanted this. The real Batman, I mean.
Rocksteady trying everything to get the salt out of the wound. And at the very least, Batman's death was given actual weight and a cutscene. Sorry, I can't stop dunking on Warner. They had the actor for Superman. Even this game's version of him looks eerily like Henry Cavill.
Hell, we murdered the whole Justice League.
Whoa.
You want a high five?
Know what, Quinn? I do. Up high.
Right as we're finally there and all ready to high five, the moment is stolen from us by Brainiac. Just keeping us on that leash.
Well, I can't remove you from the equation
Voldemort.
now.
He's back.
There's too much to learn. Better to own you.
Hey, we're given decent reason why he lets us live.
Not really though.
Woo! Finally did it.
13 brainiacs.
We get to keep killing him over and over.
So that's our live service angle. That's one way to do it.
What did I tell you about playing dumbass double agents?
You're our daddy.
That got a really good chuckle out of me.
And as for you,
Oh, our boy for sure. So what now? Yeah, what a great freaking question. I just spent the last 7 hours asking myself that. The end of this game is called Finite Crisis. Can't be infinite since we only got to take down unlucky 13 of the bastards. Cute little reference nonetheless.
I'll show Task Force X where they can slip through the veil between worlds.
Please stop.
Slip through my veil.
Please don't.
I'd watch.
My name's Vril Dox.
Vril Dox is actually Brainiac 2 from the comics, so that's pretty neat. Why is he a reskinned Flash fight and not its own unique boss battle for the final confrontation of the story? Don't know, but I'll give him one for the lip service.
I would have been minus 150. Like, the fact that the last boss fight is just a reskin is baffling to me. Like, it is so amazing. It boggles my mind. Like, it actually gives me a headache. I am amazed that they worked on this for 7 years. They worked on another project for 2, and then they worked on this for 7, apparently. They worked on this game in its final form for 7 years. And they couldn't come up with a way to do a final boss fight with Brainiac that was unique. It's stunning. Like, even if season 1 was a reskin, I think we'd all be like, well, it's season 1. Like, okay. But the core final fight of the game is a reskin of what I think is probably the worst boss fight in the game. It's stunning. It's stunning. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
confrontation of the story?
Yeah, I just don't know how anybody
but
thought
I'll
this
give
was a
him
good
one for
idea.
the lip service. Oh, damn. The first time Deadshot showing off how good he is at shooting at the end of the game. Squad Media is nothing but Bathos, right?
And they're just trying really hard to be funny. That just doesn't work.
Goodbye. You will be missed, but never forgotten.
For everything Warner and Rocksteady did wrong with this game and its handling of Batman, this is one thing we can all agree on was handled gracefully and may have gotten a bat tier or two out of me.
Yeah, I do think Kevin was like the definitive Batman. And even like Mark Hamill, he was asked why he retired from doing the Joker, and he said it was basically just he would only say yes to a project if Kevin was working on it. And so they eventually just got to a point where he's like, I feel like I've done what I needed to do voicing the Joker, so I'm good. Let's just move on. And now that Kevin's passed away, I also think that, you know, he's not going to be touching the Joker ever again. But it's because Kevin was just like the definitive Batman voice for decades, you know, really, really iconic. And I do think that like some people were saying that this was made all the worse, or this was unacceptable how they killed off Batman because Kevin passed away before the game launched. And so it's his last role as Batman. And it's in a role that people were really, really not happy with. I would say like Kevin signed up for the project willingly and intentionally. He chose to go through with this. So he probably knew the broader story arc and he was happy enough with it that he chose to take it on. And I think that deserves some respect, that Kevin thought that this was worth his time and worth doing. And I do fully expect them to do sort of a Control Z on it, where it's like, oh, that was an evil clone that Brainiac made, or it was a distortion or some homunculus or something. And they'll get out of jail free that way to overcome it. I don't think that that's a valid way of overcoming it, to be fair. I don't think that undoes the negative. I don't think that fixes anything, basically. But I do think that they have a broader story arc with Batman planned. I don't think they're just going to leave it. It still is a really, really awkward and distasteful way to send off the best Batman voice actor who's ever lived, and the definitive voice as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, sort of the last one. I think he's doing one more. Is it a cartoon? Was it a cartoon film or something that I think is still in the works? Justice League Part 3? Okay. Yeah, I think there's one more project technically, but it's his last video game project, right? His death makes it hard for me to see how they're going to make the whole, oh, they're not really dead, they're just clones thing work, like your Acne and the Hole is dead. Yeah, I mean, we know that they recorded a bunch of stuff. They basically recorded all the lines for Brainiac for the full year for all of these seasons ahead of time. And we know that because, for one, they already did all the interviews with the voice actor who played Malfoy, Lucius Malfoy. He plays Brainiac as well. And they did the interviews with him. And also there was a bug in Suicide Squad where when you're playing the end game, occasionally Brainiac will deliver the wrong line and will say like, oh yes, Freeze, I should have trusted you, or should not have trusted you, or something like that. And he references a character that's not playable yet, which is a little funny. So they've recorded all of that stuff. I'm sure they recorded a ton of stuff for Batman from Kevin as well, that they just have not used yet. But still. With all this, I mean, I think, so it's not a fanboy video. I was kind of hoping it would be. That would have been funny, but it's not really a fanboy video. It's just somebody honestly trying to find the positive in the game. And I can respect it. I'll throw a like, and I'll share the link to the video so you can go give this creator some love. But I think I can appreciate trying to find the good in a game that's otherwise a poopy. I do think it's built on a false premise, which is that Rocksteady deserves this respect because they were forced to do this game and they didn't want to. That apparently is not true based on the reporting from people that are in the know. They wanted to do this. They chose to do this. And so to be like, oh, well, we should feel bad for Rocksteady because they didn't want to do this to begin with and they were forced to. That apparently is not true. Apparently they wanted to do this and it ended up this bad. So they have no one to blame but themselves, really. I get the feeling that this was maybe an attempted cash grab from like the studio founders or from somebody within the ownership structure of Rocksteady trying to get a bag before starting a separate studio or something. I feel like there's some element of that sort of attempted cash grab at play here, but who knows? Who knows? You mean Warner Brothers Discovery? Well, it's not really clear how the pay structure works. What apparently happens with a lot of these companies is that when they sell to a parent company or when they're founded within a parent company, the people that run or founded the studios, in this case, Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker, they would still retain certain bonusing structures if they deliver on certain targets. So like they get paid out maybe 50 basis points of a game's revenue. So if a game generates $1 million in revenue, then they're able to generate whatever that would be. I said $1 million and 50 basis points, like $50,000, $5,000, whatever it is. Numbers are hard. So like at the very least, then they could bonus off of it and find ways to get paid out. But it's unclear what exactly that is, because the only people that really know that are Warner Brothers Discovery executives and then Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker. My impression, though, is that there's probably some bonusing structure involved with it, which is why you can also see companies like BGS, even though they're owned by ZeniMax, even though they're owned by Xbox after the fact, they still are introducing like paid mods and things like that. I don't think it's purely executives coming down and being like, you're going to do this. My guess is Todd also gets paid if that does well, you know, if the game generates a lot of money, because he's the one actually in the trenches trying to push it, you know. Sean, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships on YouTube, my friend. Thank you. Sean the Goat. Yeah. I'd love to be a fly on the wall inside Rocksteady's management when they found out how much people hated the game. Well, what's really, really interesting is that a lot of these games that end up being labeled as like cringe or really, really bad, their failure comes as a total surprise to everybody. Like actually stunning and shocking. And a great example is like Forspoken. Saints Row is another example. There's a lot of these games where everybody that worked on it apparently thought it was going to be received really well and that people were going to love it and be like, ooh, that's badass. That's super cool. And then when it's received really poorly, they're stunned. Like, what on earth? We thought people were going to be super stoked on it. And I think it's because, for one, you're kind of in an echo chamber and a bubble. So you've been working on this game for 5 years. You just kind of lose sight of the broader picture. And if they are not going out and getting critical feedback from people on the outside, they might not realize that. I've done stuff in years past where like indie developers, for example, have asked me to look at their games and provide feedback and offer thoughts on what they could change, what they can improve, what I'd like to see, things like that. And when I've done that in the past, for these smaller indie games, usually it's feedback around how things should be framed, how things should be paced, and they can take that feedback and grow from it. I can't think of a time where I know Call of Duty has occasionally, and like Rainbow Six, I think, has asked creators for feedback and stuff. But a lot of these developers, they just kind of do their own thing and they sit in their office and they don't really do a lot of outside feedbacking. And like they just kind of do their own thing. And that's that. I mean, for years, Todd Howard said very proudly that he didn't do any focus testing. They didn't do any play testing. They played the game themselves, and then they let that determine what they did. And I think they said Fallout 76, ironically enough, was the first game that they did focus testing and play testing on, which is really funny. But yeah, it's the whole thing. Sean, thank you again. Jesus Christ. Hey man, I've been missing the streams. Have ordered the kids Celtic gear. Essentially a Discord message. Awesome, dude. I'll check that out. Yeah. Sean is Irish, and like I've actually got like the Johnny Silverhand. People were asking about that the other day. This Johnny Silverhand is a collectible statue that Sean actually sent And so the indie clothes or indie outfits are going to be freaking adorable. It's going to be so stupid cute. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. And thank you for the $50, 50 Australian dollar due. That's it. Thank you for that. That's very generous. Appreciate you. Yeah, Irish? Sean Dara? Never would have guessed. Last of Us 2 Remastered coming to PC. Rumor probably true. Guy said also said Ghost on PC. Yeah, I mean, that's a layup. I wouldn't consider that to be super shocking or anything. The fact it's not on PC yet, I find surprising, but they're probably just going to try to line it up with season 2 of the show. Just makes sense, right? Just makes sense. Let's see. Luke, would you be willing to do what Asmongold did and create a pawn character of yourself into the Dragon's Dogma 2 demo on Steam? We can help you make it. Could be fun. Oh, RS Nas, I really like that idea. That could be super fun. I'm down. I have an appointment though at 12:30. So in about 8 minutes, I have to leave. So I have an appointment, but what we'll do is either tomorrow or Wednesday, the next stream, we'll do that. I have a video going up tomorrow that I think people are going to be very interested in. No spoilers. No leaks. Not doing anything. But I think tomorrow something interesting is going to be posted to the main channel. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this appointment. I know it's a shorter stream. Again, Friday we also did a shorter stream. But I will say it's not... Tomorrow is not Dragon's Dogma 2. I will say that. Okay. That time will come probably, but it's not tomorrow. Okay. So calm yourselves. But thank you. We have like, unfortunately I'm leaving right as we hit like peak viewership, but that's just what it is. So anyway, I do have to go, but thank you everybody for hanging. Thanks for chilling. Thanks for everybody who became subs over on Twitch, Jumper, Reese, and Odominate. Thank you for the super chats and gifted memberships and everything to Sean, Nolan, Blair, Wyatt, Fearless, Kappa, Matthew, Tenacious Beagle, and Mark. You guys are all fantastic. And thank you very much. You guys are very, very generous and you humble me every day. I love you all dearly, forcefully. And I'll see you in the next stream or in the next main channel video, whatever happens first. So much love. I'll see you soon. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.